So if you're seeing this video, the War Within Season 1 will have either been released or the servers will be down for maintenance. So I think this is a really good time to go over the route you should take to be efficient with gearing in week 1 of Season 1. And this video isn't going to have any super secret breakpoints where you try to get this crafted piece at this exact time to do something. This is going to be much more simple, and you're still going to get 99% of the efficiency of anything you could possibly be doing. Now, this video is going to be PvE focused. We're not going to be going over any PvP gearing. I think PvP gearing is generally a lot more simple. I know there's a few things that could potentially help you in PvP if you're also a PvPer, but I don't think there's a super big crossover of people that are going to be doing a lot of rated PvP and are also going to care about being the most efficient they can be in PvE gearing. So right when the servers come up, I would recommend you start with going and killing the world boss. The world bosses can drop 603 item level pieces of gear. So if you get lucky and get one of those on your first kill, that'll be a pretty big bump up. And I'm fairly certain there's only going to be one world boss in week 1 like it was in previous expansions. So that'll just be a really quick way to possibly get a piece of gear. And then after you've done that, I would recommend taking some time and going and doing your weekly activities, either being the weekly quests or the weekly open world events, or doing your special operations in each one of the zones that they're currently up, because not only will completing any of these be able to give you coffer keys and you'll be able to get your 4 weekly coffer keys from those, but you'll also get the boxes that can give you gear. Now, I'm not sure if the gear in those boxes is going to be increased with Season 1, because some of the other content we've already been doing will have Season 1 versions, such as heroic dungeons, and the item level of that gear will be increasing. So there is a possibility that happens with these like weekly caches you can get, but if that's not the case and you don't get any gear upgrades, the coffer keys are still going to be very important. Now, as you're doing your weekly objectives, I would recommend you stay queued for LFR Wing 1. This will be the only LFR wing that's released on the first week, and you'll be able to get 584 item level gear from doing the first wing of LFR. That's not super high item level, but for most people that would be upgrades. You'll also have the chance to get a tier token. There's some weapons, some trinkets, and some of those more rare items that even though they're not crazy high item level, they can still be really good, especially this early on in the season. And then after you've done all of that, I would recommend you start your Mythic 0 dungeons. Now, Mythic 0s are going to work quite a bit differently than they did in previous expansions, because overall Mythic 0 dungeons are going to be what Mythic 10s were in Dragonflight. So if you go back to Dragonflight when Mythic 20s gave you the highest gear possible, Mythic 0s are what Mythic 10s would have been in that system, and these Mythic 0s are going to be on a daily lockout. So instead of doing Mythic 0s weekly, you're going to be doing them daily. So you're going to have a lot of opportunities to get a lot of gear very quickly. You're going to have the 8 dungeons to do, so it's going to take a bit of time to go through all of those. And Mythic 0s are going to be dropping 593 item level gear. So running through all of your Mythic 0s is going to give you a decent amount of gear fairly quickly. So after you've done your 8 Mythic 0 dungeons, then we're going to start into delves. Now, there's a few things you actually have to do with delves to start getting the best gear possible. So first off, you're going to have to go run delves through all of the difficulties to unlock delve tier 8, which is going to be the highest tier of delve you're going to be doing if you only care about getting higher item level gear. Doing delve tiers above 8 don't give you any better gear. So what you're going to want to be doing at this time is just leveling Bran up as much as possible if you don't have him at 15 already. And I think they're also going to uncap Bran's level at this point. So getting Bran as much experience as you can while you get up to tier 8 is going to be super helpful. Leveling up Bran makes these delves much easier. He actually gets a lot of damage and a lot of power increases. And while you're doing this, do not run any bountiful delves. There will be one bountiful delve you can do in each zone on a daily basis. Until you get to tier 8, do not step foot in a bountiful delve, because the chest in the bountiful delve is where you're going to get the best gear. So after you've done all that, after you've gotten to tier 8, then you can start running your bountiful delves. And like mentioned, there's going to be 1 Bountiful Delve in every zone, so there's going to be 4, and they reset on a daily basis. Unless something's going to change, you're going to want to be doing your 4 Bountiful Delves every single day. That's actually going to be very important, because when you go and run that Bountiful Delve on tier 8 and use one of your coffer keys on the big chest at the end, that will give you a 603 piece of gear. So this is going to be some of the best gear you can get in the first week of the season, unless you're doing like heroic raiding. And not only that, but these will be working towards your Great Vault. So once next week comes around, you'll be able to pick up a good piece of gear from your vault as well, just from doing these tier 8 delves. And if you've been saving up a bunch of coffer keys like a lot of people have been doing, you'll want to keep doing these Bountiful Delves every day until you run out of keys. If you haven't been saving up these coffer keys, you'll still be able to go and get your 4 coffer keys from your weekly objectives. So you'll at least get to do those 4 Bountiful Delves on tier 8 for 4 pieces of 603 item level gear. So that's still going to be a pretty big bump, even if you haven't been saving up your keys. Now, for the majority of the player base, that's the main content you're going to be doing, but there are a few additional things you can do if you want to go that extra mile. First off is to get some gear crafted. So I'd recommend going and checking on Wowhead or Icy Veins or any other website that commonly posts builds. There you'll be able to find your best in slot crafted gear, and you'll be able to get 1 or 2 pieces of gear crafted using your Spark of Omens. And even if you don't get this gear crafted at the highest item level possible for the first week, you can always get it recrafted. So it's usually still worthwhile to get some pieces of gear crafted this early on. Now, if you want to save some gold and you don't want to do this early, that's completely fine. I don't think that's going to be that big of an issue. This is just if you want to take that extra mile and you want to be as optimal as possible. And then after you've done all of this, you can also run the raid on normal or heroic difficulties. Now, the reason I didn't add the raids at any other point in this guide is because generally running raids this early on in the season is primarily done by guilds. You may be able to go pug the raid on normal difficulty and get some of the bosses killed. Maybe if you find some crazy good group, you could clear the raid on normal. That's probably not going to happen for most people. And then you have a very low chance of doing any of the bosses on heroic this early on. Maybe you could find a good group that could kill like the first couple bosses on heroic. That again will probably be pretty rare. So raiding this early on normal or heroic is primarily for guilds. So if you have a set group or you have a guild that's going to be raiding, you can throw raiding into any section of anything we've gone over. Now, raids are obviously going to be on a weekly lockout, so I'd still recommend doing the pieces of content that are more daily driven, such as Mythic 0 dungeons or Bountiful Delves. But wherever you're going to throw in raiding is obviously still going to be good, because a normal raid drops 597 gear that increases as you get to the higher bosses, and the heroic raid drops 610 gear that increases as well as you get to the more difficult bosses. Now, as a special mention, there may also be the open world BOE epics that we've gotten in pretty much every other expansion up to this point, but I'm not actually sure if those exist in the War Within. It's obvious as to why those items wouldn't be dropping until season 1 starts with how the War Within is going about unlocking content. So open world BOEs may start to drop when season 1 starts, and usually those are really good pieces of gear to start out a season with. So just keep in mind that may be a possibility if you're someone that has a lot of gold and you want to spend it on BOEs, or if you're somebody that likes AoE mob grinding, you may want to take some time, if you have extra time, to do that as well, to try and get those, if those actually exist. Because again, I don't actually know if these epic BOE drops are something that are going to exist in the War Within. But that's pretty much all you're going to be able to do to gear up in the first week of season 1. And if you follow this guide and you go through everything, you're going to give yourself the best opportunity to get as much gear as possible and just to get the best gear you can possibly be getting. And then obviously after following this list the first day, then you'll just go back and do the daily activities every other day past that. So do as many Bountiful Delves on as many days as you have coffer keys, and then continue to do your Mythic 0 runs every single day. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.